The thunder rolled across the Montana sky as Olivia Lawson yanked the reins of her horse, the animal rearing in protest as she made a desperate decision. She couldn't marry Sheriff Randall, a man 30 years her senior with eyes as cold as winter and hands twice as harsh. Her wedding dress, hastily borrowed and too large for her slender frame, caught the wind like a sail as she spurred the horse away from the small white church where the townsfolk of Silver Creek waited. It was 1876, and at 21, Olivia had run out of options. Her father's death 3 months prior had left her with nothing but debts and the unwanted attention of the sheriff, who'd made it clear that marriage to him was her only path to salvation. But salvation shouldn't feel like a noose. The rain began to fall as she pushed her mount harder, the church bells clanging behind her in alarming urgency. They'd discovered her absence. She heard shouts and the thunder of hooves, but she pressed on, heading for the dense forest that bordered the northern edge of town. "You won't make it," she whispered to herself, her voice lost in the storm. But dying free is better than living caged. A large figure on horseback suddenly emerged from the tree line ahead, blocking her path. Olivia pulled hard on the reins, nearly tumbling from her saddle as her horse skidded to a halt on the muddy ground. The rider approached slowly, his face shadowed by the brim of his hat. Rain cascaded down his long coat as he guided his massive black stallion directly into her path. "Miss Lawson," his voice was deep but gentle, carrying clearly through the downpour. "It's dangerous out here for a bride on the run." She recognized him then, Cole Yates, the quiet cowboy who'd arrived in Silver Creek the previous spring. He kept to himself, working at the Morgan Ranch outside town, speaking only when necessary. Some said he had a dark past, others claimed he was running from something. All Olivia knew was that he had kind eyes that didn't match his intimidating stature. "Move aside, Mr. Yates," she demanded, though her voice trembled with the cold and fear. "This isn't your concern." He moved his horse closer and she could see his face clearly now, strong features, a stubbled jaw and eyes that held no judgment. "They're coming for you. 5 men armed." "The sheriff is leading them." Panic fluttered in her chest. "Then let me pass," Cole shook his head. "They'll catch you before nightfall. You're heading into a box canyon. There's no way through." "I'd rather die in that canyon than marry that man." The sounds of pursuit grew louder. Cole made a swift decision, reaching out his hand. "Come with me. I know these mountains better than any of them." Olivia hesitated, her mind racing. Trust this near stranger or face Randall's wrath? "Decide now," Cole urged, his hand still extended. With a desperate prayer, she grabbed his hand. In one fluid motion, he pulled her from her horse onto his stallion, settling her in front of him. With a sharp whistle, he sent her horse galloping away from them, creating a false trail. "Hold tight," he instructed, wrapping one strong arm around her waist while guiding the horse with his other hand. They plunged into the thick forest, riding hard through a narrow trail that Olivia had never noticed before. The stallion moved with surprising agility through the dense undergrowth, guided by Cole's expert handling. Minutes stretched into an hour as they followed hidden paths, crossed shallow streams, and navigated through rocky passages. "Where are we going?" Olivia finally asked, her teeth chattering from the cold rain that had soaked through her thin wedding dress. "Somewhere safe," was all he said, pulling his coat around to cover her as best he could. As dusk fell, they arrived at a small cabin nestled against a cliff face, nearly invisible among the pines. Cole dismounted and helped her down, her legs so numb she nearly collapsed against him. "It's not much," he said, leading her inside, "but they won't find you here." The cabin was simple but clean, one room with a stone fireplace, a narrow bed, a table with 2 chairs, and shelves stocked with provisions. Cole quickly lit a fire while Olivia stood shivering by the door. "There are dry clothes in that trunk," he nodded toward a wooden chest. "They belong to my sister. They should fit you well enough." She eyed him suspiciously. "Your sister? She died 2 years ago, cholera." His voice was matter of fact, but Olivia caught the flash of pain in his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded once, then turned to tend the horse. "I'll wait outside while you change." Alone in the cabin, Olivia moved quickly, peeling off the sodden wedding dress and undergarments. In the trunk, she found simple but well-made clothing: a long skirt, blouse, and woolen sweater. They were slightly large but warm and dry. She used a rough towel to dry her long auburn hair as best she could. When Cole returned, he carried saddlebags and a rifle. He seemed relieved to see her in dry clothes, the color returning to her cheeks. "Are you hungry?" he asked, setting a pot of water to boil on the small iron stove. "Starving," she admitted. The day's events had left her hollow with fear and exhaustion. As Cole prepared a simple meal of beans, dried beef, and biscuits, Olivia sat by the fire, watching him move with quiet efficiency. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. He was silent for so long she thought he might not answer. "No woman should be forced to marry against her will," he said eventually. "Especially not to Randall. You know him." Olivia leaned forward, curious. Cole's jaw tightened. "I know men like him, men who take what isn't freely given." He served their food in tin plates, and they ate in silence for a while. The steady drumming of rain on the roof filled the cabin with a soothing rhythm. "What will happen now?" Olivia asked, setting aside her empty plate. Cole leaned back in his chair. "Randall won't give up easily. Your escape humiliated him in front of the whole town. Men like him can't abide humiliation." "I can't go back," she said firmly. "No, you can't," he agreed, "but you can't stay here forever either." Olivia felt tears welling in her eyes. "I have nowhere else to go. My father's debts left me with nothing, and I have no family." Cole studied her for a long moment. "There's a town 3 days' ride from here, Riverton. It's bigger than Silver Creek, with opportunities for a woman with skills." "I can read and write," Olivia said quickly. "I kept my father's books when he was alive. I can sew and cook well enough." "That's a start," Cole nodded. "But first we need to make sure Randall gives up the search." "How? We'll let him think you're dead." The plan was simple but dangerous. Cole rode out at dawn, leaving Olivia secure in the cabin with instructions not to light fires during daylight and to keep the shutters closed. He returned in the late afternoon, his expression grim. "They found your horse wandering near Eagle Falls," he reported. "The dress was caught on rocks at the edge. They're dragging the river now, but the current's strong after the storm. They'll never find a body." Olivia felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. "The whole town thinks I'm dead, soon enough." Randall sent for men from the fort to help search, but after a few days they'll give up. For 5 days they followed the same routine. Cole would leave at dawn to work at the Morgan Ranch, maintaining appearances, and return with news from town. Olivia spent her days cleaning the cabin, mending clothes she found in the trunk, and reading the few books on Cole's shelves, mostly practical guides to ranching and hunting, but also, surprisingly, a volume of Tennyson's poetry. They passed evenings with simple conversation. She learned that Cole had come west from Pennsylvania after the war, that he had worked cattle drives from Texas to Kansas before settling in Montana territory. He didn't speak of his family beyond mentioning his sister, and Olivia didn't press. In turn, she told him about growing up as the only child of a struggling merchant, about her mother's death when she was 12, and her dreams of someday teaching school. It was easier to talk to Cole than anyone she'd ever known. He listened without judgment, his questions thoughtful. On the 6th night, as they sat by the fire, Cole broke their comfortable silence. "They've stopped searching. The Reverend held a memorial service today. Randall made a show of grief, but most folks know it was a marriage of convenience, not love. So I'm officially dead," Olivia said softly. "To Silver Creek, yes," she stared into the flames. "When do we leave for Riverton?" "We should wait another week to be safe," Cole replied. "Randall's suspicious by nature. He might have men watching the trails." Olivia nodded, feeling a strange reluctance at the thought of leaving. This cabin, initially a temporary refuge, had begun to feel like home. The next morning, Olivia woke to find Cole already gone, but he'd left fresh coffee brewing on the stove. She poured herself a cup and stepped outside for the first time since their arrival, careful to stay close to the cabin. The mountain air was crisp with early autumn, the forest alive with birdsong. She wandered to a small stream that ran behind the cabin, watching the clear water tumble over smooth stones. A twig snapped behind her. Olivia whirled around, expecting Cole, but instead found herself facing a stranger, a weathered man with a patchy beard and hungry eyes. "Well, well," he drawled. "Looks like the dead bride of Silver Creek ain't so dead after all." Olivia's blood ran cold. She recognized him as one of Randall's deputies. "You're making a mistake," she said, backing toward the cabin. "No mistake," he grinned, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "Sheriff's offering $50 for information about you, another $100 to bring you back alive." He advanced slowly, one hand resting on his holstered pistol. "Though he didn't say nothing about what condition you had to be in." Olivia turned to run, but the man lunged forward, grabbing her arm with painful force. "Let her go, Dawson." Cole stood at the edge of the clearing, his rifle aimed steadily at the deputy's head. "This ain't your business, Yates," Dawson spat, but his grip on Olivia loosened slightly. "I'm making it my business." Cole's voice was deadly calm. "Take your hand off her and back away." For a tense moment, Olivia thought Dawson might draw his pistol, but something in Cole's stance made him reconsider. He released her with a shove that sent her stumbling. "Randall will hear about this," Dawson threatened. "No, he won't," Cole replied. "Because if he does, I'll tell him how you've been skimming from the tax collections and spending it at Madame Lucy's." Dawson's face paled. "How did I see things? Now go, and if you value your life, forget you ever saw Miss Lawson." Dawson backed away slowly, his eyes darting between them. "This ain't over, Yates." Once he disappeared into the trees, Cole lowered his rifle and moved quickly to Olivia's side. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her arm throbbed where Dawson had gripped it. "How did you know?" "I didn't. I forgot my canteen and came back for it." His jaw was tight with anger. "We need to leave now. Dawson might come back with others." They packed quickly: food, ammunition, a few clothes, and the essentials for a long journey. Within an hour, they were mounted on Cole's stallion, heading west through mountain passes that only Cole seemed to know. They rode hard that day, stopping only to rest the horse and eat a cold meal of jerky and hardtack. By nightfall, they had covered impressive ground, but Cole insisted they push on a few more miles before making camp. "We need distance," he explained. "Randall knows these mountains too." When they finally stopped in a sheltered ravine, Olivia was so exhausted she could barely dismount. Cole caught her as she slipped from the saddle, his strong hands steadying her. "I'm sorry," she said, embarrassed by her weakness. "Don't be," he replied softly. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known." Something in his voice made her look up. In the moonlight, his features were softened, and his eyes held an expression she hadn't seen before: admiration, and something deeper that made her heart beat faster. Cole cleared his throat and stepped back. "You should rest. I'll keep watch." The next 2 days followed the same pattern: hard riding by day, brief stops to eat and rest, and tense nights where they took turns keeping watch. They spoke little, both aware that Randall and his men could be behind every ridge. On the third day, as they crossed a high plateau, Cole suddenly reined in the horse. "Riverton," he said, pointing to a cluster of buildings in the valley below. Smoke rose from chimneys, and Olivia could make out the steeple of a church and the larger structures of a proper town. "We made it," she whispered, relief washing over her, but Cole didn't move. "Before we go down there, you should know something." Olivia turned to look at him, concerned by the gravity in his voice. "I haven't been entirely honest with you," he continued, not meeting her eyes. "I didn't just happen to be riding near Silver Creek when you fled. I was looking for you specifically." "What?" Olivia pulled away slightly. "Why?" Cole took a deep breath. "Your father wrote to me before he died. We served together during the war. He saved my life at Shiloh." In his letter, he told me about his illness, about the debts, and about Randall's interest in you. He asked you to help me. Olivia's mind reeled with this revelation. He asked me to look out for you, yes, to make sure you were safe and taken care of. Cole finally met her gaze. I came to Silver Creek intending to introduce myself properly, but then I heard about the wedding. I watched from a distance, hoping you were entering the marriage willingly, but when I saw your face at the church. You knew I was being forced, Olivia finished. Cole nodded. I positioned myself on your likely escape route. I didn't know if you'd run, but I hoped you would. Olivia sat in stunned silence, processing this information. Why didn't you tell me? At first, I wasn't sure if you'd trust me. Later, he hesitated. Later, I didn't want you to think I was helping you out of obligation alone. And are you? She asked quietly. No, he answered, his voice rough with emotion. What began as a promise to your father became something else entirely, something I wasn't looking for but found anyway. The meaning behind his words hung in the air between them. Olivia studied his face, the strength and kindness there, the honor that had driven him to fulfill a promise, and the feelings that had grown beyond duty. I understand if this changes things, Cole said when she remained silent. If you'd prefer to make your own way in Riverton, I'll respect that decision. Olivia reached out and placed her hand on his. My father was a good judge of character. If he trusted you with my welfare, then I'm grateful he did. Relief washed over Cole's features, but Olivia wasn't finished. But that's not why I trust you now, she continued. I trust you because of who you've shown yourself to be, not through words or promises, but through actions. She slid her hand up to rest against his cheek, feeling the roughness of his stubble under her palm. Whatever begins in obligation can grow into something freely given, freely chosen. Cole covered her hand with his own, his eyes never leaving hers. And what is it you choose, Olivia Lawson? A future, she said simply. One that includes you if you'll have me. Instead of answering with words, Cole leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with the release of feelings they'd both been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Cole rested his forehead against hers. I never expected to find you, he whispered. And yet here we are, Olivia smiled. They rode into Riverton as dusk painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. The town was larger than Silver Creek, with proper streets, a schoolhouse and businesses that suggested prosperity, a hotel, several mercantile stores, a bank, and a newspaper office. Cole guided them to a modest boarding house run by a plump, cheerful widow named Mrs. Bennett, who raised an eyebrow at their travel-worn appearance but asked no questions when Cole paid for 2 separate rooms in advance. You'll be safe here tonight, he told Olivia as they stood in the hallway between their rooms. Tomorrow we'll figure out our next steps. She nodded, suddenly shy. Thank you, Cole, for everything. He took her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Sleep well, Olivia. The next morning, Cole was waiting in the dining room when Olivia came downstairs. After a hearty breakfast, they set out to explore the town and assess opportunities. At the newspaper office, they learned that the school teacher had recently married and moved east with her husband, leaving Riverton in need of someone to take her place. It seems like fate, Olivia whispered to Cole as they left the editor's office with instructions to speak to the town council. By midday, they had met with 2 council members who were impressed with Olivia's education and eagerness. The position of school teacher was offered along with a small house that came with the job. It's not much, the older councilman apologized, but it's clean and sound. It's perfect, Olivia assured him, her heart light with possibility. That evening, as they walked along the main street, Cole seemed unusually quiet. What's troubling you? Olivia asked, stopping to face him. He hesitated. You have a position, a house, a fresh start. I'm wondering where I fit in your new life. Olivia took both his hands in hers. Wherever you want to fit, Cole Yates. I meant what I said on the mountain. I choose a future with you. They won't let a school teacher be married to a simple cowboy, he pointed out. Then perhaps you shouldn't be a simple cowboy, she replied with a smile. I saw how you looked at that ranch for sale outside town. Cole looked surprised. You noticed that? I notice everything about you, she said softly, including how your eyes lit up when the agent mentioned it needed an experienced hand to make it profitable again. It would be a risk, he admitted. All my savings would go into it. The best things in life usually involve risk, Olivia said, stepping closer to him. My father used to say that. Your father was a wise man, Cole smiled, wrapping his arms around her waist. But there's one more risk I need to take. Before she could ask what he meant, Cole sank to one knee right there on the boardwalk, pulling a simple gold band from his pocket. Olivia Lawson, I've never been a man of many words, but I need to say these: I love you. Not because I promised your father I'd protect you, but because you're brave and kind and stronger than anyone I've ever known. Will you marry me? Not because you have to, but because you want to? Tears filled Olivia's eyes as passers-by stopped to watch. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, Cole Yates, I'll marry you because I want to, because I choose to, because I love you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, then stood and pulled her into an embrace that lifted her off her feet, both of them laughing through tears of joy. 3 weeks later, on a crisp October morning, Olivia stood in the back of Riverton's church, wearing a simple cream-colored dress that Mrs. Bennett had helped her make. The small building was filled with new friends, her students and their parents, ranchers who'd welcomed Cole, shopkeepers who'd embraced them both as part of the community. As the music began, a moment of panic seized her memories of another wedding, another church, another life. She hesitated at the door, her breath coming fast, and then she saw Cole standing at the altar, his eyes fixed on her with such love and certainty that her fear dissolved like morning mist. This was different. This was real. This was chosen. She took one step forward, then another. Cole moved toward her, meeting her halfway down the aisle. He took her hands in his, steadying her. You'll run no more, he whispered for her ears alone, his voice tender with promise. Unless we're running together. Olivia's heart swelled with love so intense it brought fresh tears to her eyes. Together, she agreed, linking her arm through his as they walked the rest of the way to the altar as equals, as partners, as two people who had found in each other not just safety but home. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows written in their own words, promises of honesty, partnership, and love freely given. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Cole's kiss held all the passion and tenderness of a man who had found his heart's desire and would cherish it always. The celebration afterward at their newly purchased ranch was joyous music and dancing, food and laughter, the community welcoming them fully into its embrace. As evening fell, they stood together on the porch of what was now their home, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in hues of gold and purple. Are you happy, Mrs. Yates? Cole asked, his arm around her waist. Olivia leaned into his embrace, feeling the solid strength of him, the safety she'd found not in surrender but in choice. Happier than I ever imagined possible, she answered truthfully. And you? I came west looking for a place to belong, Cole said, pressing a kiss to her temple. I never expected to find a person to belong to instead. We belong to each other, Olivia corrected gently. Equal in all things. Equal in all things, he agreed with a smile. Partners in this life we're building. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought them here, a desperate flight from one ceremony leading to a joyful embrace of another. How different it felt to marry from love rather than necessity, to choose rather than be chosen. What are you thinking about? Cole asked, noticing her contemplative silence. About how sometimes running away from the wrong thing leads you directly to the right one, she replied, turning in his arms to face him. I'm glad you ran, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And I'm glad I stopped you. So I could run no more, she teased, echoing his words from the church. So you could run alongside me instead, he corrected, his eyes filled with love. For the rest of our days. As their lips met in a kiss that promised a lifetime of such moments, Olivia knew that in finding Cole, she hadn't just found safety or security. She had found freedom, the freedom to love without fear, to build a life on her own terms, to be fully herself and be loved for exactly who she was. In running from a forced marriage, she had galloped headlong into love. And in that love, she had found not a cage, but wings.